Thank you to all my channel members, including my fan appreciation level members and my contributor level members, for helping support the YouTube channel.
Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today we have three great guests to talk about a great book. We are going to be talking about Outbound Flight. Now, the three guests I have, I'll introduce them each individually. We are collectively members of the Awkward Silence Gang. It's our friend group online, and we all wanted to read Outbound Flight together, and so we're going to. So I'm going to introduce each of us. We have Alex here.
Hi.
We
That's
also
it. I don't
have,
have nothing.
yeah. We have Ryan.
Go read Malazan.
You got it in first
That's a
thing.
good
First
good
thing.
idea.
First thing. Okay, you got it in. And then we have Caleb from Caleb Likes Books. Caleb, great to
Hello,
see you.
that's me.
Yeah. So we're going to be talking about Outbound Flight. We're going to be going full spoilers in this discussion. We might like start it out just kind of general impressions, but we're going to get into full spoilers. So definitely make sure you've either read the book or at least read the Wikipedia articles if you haven't. So to start out, well, you should read the book because it's really good. To start out with, so for three of us, this was a reread, but for one of us, this was a first time read. So Alex. First impressions on this book.
Okay. I had no clue what this was about, other than what it alluded to, what Zahn alluded to in the first Thrawn trilogy, which, of course, he wrote that before, right?
Hmm.
So I was just, everything kind of surprised me, the whole setting, the whole themes. Um, but overall, I mean, like Mace Windu is in the book, and I had no clue
Yeah.
that that would be a thing. There's connections to other series. My favorite series, The New Jedi Order, a lot of
Hmm.
those
Yep.
that I really love, and I'm really glad I read it after that.
Yep.
But overall, I loved most of it. I wouldn't say it's better than some other Zahn books, but I really enjoyed the book as a whole.
Okay, Ryan, this was a reread for you. When was the last time you read this?
I probably read this at launch eons ago, and it may as well have just been a first time read for me. I have forgotten so much that Anakin and Obi-Wan are in it. Like Alex was saying, Mace Windu is in it, and just an overwhelming amount of references to future series when you look at it canonically. And yeah, it was just a terrific read. It makes me wonder, with all of these tie-ins, was that Zahn's possible original view of Outbound Flight and its history?
I can already say no because I've heard him talk about this with his other books, and he always says unless he specifically states something, he doesn't fill in because he wants to have opportunity for the future if he gets a better idea. So, like for instance, the idea that there was a outbound flight that Jorah Sabayoth was a part of. Of course, he had mentioned that, but the details of it he left open so that if he needed to, he could adjust. For instance, there's a character in here, and we'll talk about him in a moment, who I do not believe was probably in Zahn's original version of Outbound Flight, but after he wrote the Hand of Thrawn duology, he probably included that character here. And so I know that it's certainly changed at some point. But speaking of changes, Caleb, you've read this before. How does this
Yes.
read compare with the first time?
So I read this, I want to say summer of 2021,
Hmm.
and I really liked it. And it was one of my favorite Star Wars books I read at the time, which at that point was not many. I
Hmm.
think before this, I had read like Jedi Academy, the original Thrawn trilogy, Darth Bane trilogy, and like a handful of other things. So this was probably like my 15th-ish Star Wars book.
Hmm.
And I loved it, and it was one of my favorites. And since then, it kind of went down with time as I just read more stuff. And now that I've read it again, it's like shot right back up to the top. To speak to what Alex said, where it's not one of his favorite Zahn books necessarily, I think this is my new favorite Zahn Star Wars book. So I really liked it, both the first time and this time. And there was a lot that I forgot, so it was like almost as if I was reading it the first time again. So
Absolutely. I would say that if you view this as a standalone, which it very much is in a lot of ways, then this is my favorite standalone Zahn book, except for maybe the 2017 Thrawn book, which
mm,
again is like part of a trilogy, but it's also very standalone because they only greenlit it for the one book. And then they said, we're going to wait to see if sells well, which it did. But this and that I think are at the top standalone wise. But if you view it as part of a series, because it technically is connected to Survivor's Quest, then absolutely I would put all of his other series ahead of it. I would put the Thrawn trilogy, Hand of Thrawn, and the two canon Thrawn trilogies above it, because I think Survivor's Quest is that weak. Personally, have y'all any of y'all three read Survivor's
mm.
Quest?
I have it, but I haven't read it. But I'll probably read it soon now that I've reread this. I've got it on the plan later this year, hopefully. So,
If I
Well,
have, it's been so many years ago that again I've forgotten it.
well, Survivor's Quest technically came out first, and so it's set, with uh, Luke and Mara who are exploring what happened to Outbound Flight, and they're meeting some chiss and meeting the survivors and stuff. And that book, especially coming first, just doesn't work at all as much for me. There's only one thing that reading that book first does, which is it makes the ending of this hit so much more because you'll realize when you're getting closer to the end, you'll be like, oh, you'll see it coming. But if you take that out of it, I think it's better to read Outbound Flight first.
mhm.
But both books are made better. I just read Cross Current, and there's a ton of connections there as well. So I can see how they were, not just Zahn, but the other authors were tying everything together. And you did talk about, Alex, you talked about the New Jedi Order. And that was really interesting because as far as I'm aware, the words Yuuzhan Vong are not in the book
No,
yet.
but it's clear that that's what it is. Yeah.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
clear what it
Because
is.
there's a quote that Palpatine said in it, which is, it's quote, a massive assault force of dark ships, shadowy figures, and weapons of great power based on organic technology of a sort we've never seen before. There's only
Yeah.
one possible answer. So
Yeah.
Plus, they're referred to in some places as the Far Outsiders, which is
Hmm.
another name for them. So it was a fun thing. So,
I was also surprised. I did not catch this the first read through, but I did this time. Vergere is name dropped a ton.
yes,
And that was surprising to me that Vergere was mentioned. But I'm getting ahead of us. So there are many major events, but they're based on the characters that are kind of in the main story. So we have the characters, really, we have, I would say, three main POVs we're following. And then the other characters are around these three POVs. So you have the George Cardass POV, the Lurana Jinsler POV, and the Kinman Doriana POV. And any other characters who are around, maybe exception of maybe like Obi-Wan and Anakin, kind of their own thing, but really those are the three big ones. And so we'll start with the George Cardass, who is sent to he and his crew with Kento and Maris. They are smuggling and they're out in the far reaches, and Thrawn captures them and basically kind of forces them to stay with him as they learn the language and also as he learns their language. And I, even though this is when the book slows down, I really liked his getting to know and trust Cardass because it just made their dynamic so strong. And when Cardass betrays Thrawn later on, I thought that was just so, because I was like, no, Cardass, I thought you trusted him. And when Thrawn also several times throws Cardass under the bus, and then it turns out, nah, it was a part of the plan. I thought that stuff has emotionally impactful because of how much time we spent with them. Ryan, did you really like their scenes together?
Oh yes, absolutely. It's much like Joris Kavath. I think Thrawn, you just can't help but love it every single time he's on the page.
Mm-hmm.
You're just wondering, especially if you are coming from the original Thrawn trilogy and the Hand of Thrawn, so you already know that he's calculating all of the possibilities,
mm,
and you just want to know what's coming next. And if somebody has betrayed him, like Zahn has made this out to be, you think this is a plot because uh, he's just trying to, Cardass is just trying to basically at this point find a way out.
Hmm.
He's had enough. He's had his intrigue with Thrawn, and now it's to time to leave. But as we all know, there are complexities and other situations that occur, and so yeah, it looks like this betrayal is happening to for him to get out sooner. And nope. Thrawn had uh, Thrawn had other plans, and it just is genius, just genius.
Yes, absolutely. And there was a couple of times where I even on a reread I was like I didn't remember what happened, but I could predict because the events, particularly when Thrawn first accused him of being a traitor in front of the
Mhm.
Trade Federation and stuff. That time I knew, oh, Thrawn's playing a game. But when George stole the shuttle and went off to the Vigari and was negotiating with them, I didn't remember that part, and I legitimately was like, "What are you doing, man? Don't do this to Thrawn." And
I
then
felt very similarly when I was rereading it because I didn't remember either.
yeah,
So
yeah, and that's the part of the reason that this works so well on reread is it's so dense. This is, it's a standard length for Star Wars novel, maybe a little bit on the longer end, but it's not crazy long. It's not like Vision of the Future or something like that, but it's a bit longer. Yet I think it works so well because there's so much story packed in, and so on a reread, there's just so much you forgot the first time that you read it. Alex, I did want to ask you what you thought of the character George Cardass.
Oh, he was great. And to what Ryan said, the knowing this what Thrawn does, especially reading almost every other Thrawn book, you know that he's got everything kind of planned out 5 steps ahead.
Mm-hmm.
So I was never like concerned. The what was in my head though was like in the EU, Thrawn is much more typically of an antagonist,
Mm-hmm.
whereas in the new canon, it's kind of gray area, I guess, but
Yep.
it's more so the protagonist, I would say. But so I didn't. The thing that I was questioning was, is Thrawn gonna like lead him somewhere that's going to cause his demise, or?
Mm-hmm.
But from what I think, if you've read a Thrawn book before, you know that like Thrawn and what he was doing with George is like, well, he's got a reason for doing it, and I expect maybe George didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
Like every other character doesn't know that about Thrawn, but no, yeah, I think he was a great character.
And this is not the first time that George has showed up in the Star Wars universe because, in terms of publication order, he had shown up before in another Timothy Zahn book. He had shown up somewhere, I won't specify where, in the Hand of Thrawn duology, and I had read out of order. I had read Outbound Flight first before I read the duology. So it was such a cool reveal because I was like, oh, they're going to get information from Cardass. Of course he knows who Thrawn is. Of course he has great information because he was in this book. But if you read it in the publication order, then you would already be familiar with Cardass. So when you get him in this book, you kind of know everything's going to get patched up. So, in my opinion, this is one of the few times I would say that reading in publication order is wrong, because I think that the reveal in that works so much better than if you do it the other way around. Ryan, you've read both this and The Hand of Thrawn, I believe.
I
Did you have an
have.
opinion on the matter?
Well, as far like that reveal that you just did,
Hmm.
it's been again even longer since I read Hand of Thrawn,
Right.
which is I know we've talked about this in our chat. It's just such a goofy plot idea, but it is just so wonderfully done.
Hmm.
And again, it's just a brilliant. It just shows Timothy Zahn's brilliant writing with the Thrawn character. But it's with George. It's fun just to see him at the start of this book. Like you don't even think he's going to be a main character,
Hmm.
honestly. He just seems like um, he's scared. He's just kind of the sidekick kind of character, and just gets thrown into this adventure that didn't plan for, didn't want,
Hmm.
just trying to survive.
So, going to another character in here. So, George may have shown up before, but there's an original character who I believe this is not only her only appearance, but I believe this is the only time she's even mentioned. I can't even remember another book referencing her in any way, and that's Lurana Ginsler, which is shocking because I think she's a fantastic character. We'll go to Caleb first on this. Caleb, what did you think of Lorana Ginsler, and what did you think of her relationship with her master?
I really liked her. I think probably the Chiss and George and like that plot line was my favorite part of the book, but I think
Hmm.
Lorana was my favorite POV to follow because I really liked, first of all, just seeing the Outbound Flight stuff was cool, but then seeing her as like a young Jedi and her relationship with Joris was really cool because like you know him kind of from the Thrawn trilogy. Like it's not exactly the same because he's a clone and stuff, but um, you kind of know him. So then you get to kind of see him through her eyes and how she's like, okay, yeah, he's my master. He's a little weird in some places, but I'm gonna kind of try to learn something here, and that was kind of fun. And I thought she was a good character. I didn't remember that she dies at the end. Um, spoiler alert.
Yep,
It's a spoiler discussion. It's fine. But
yep, yep.
I was wondering about that though as it was leading up to it. I was like, is she gonna survive this? I don't actually remember. So that was kind of fun too. And then I was sad. So
Yeah,
thanks,
and
Timothy Zahn.
and he does such a
Yeah.
good job of making us care for her. And, just every time that Sabayoth just, beats her down verbally and just yanks away opportunity from her,
Mhm.
you just empathize with her so much. And then she sees other people on Outbound Flight, that the same thing's happening to them, and she empathizes with them, but she just feels so powerless. And I think that's what made her so relatable. Is she's not this, very assertive character. She's very much a stands in the background, apologizes for stuff. Alex, what did you think of Lorana and her relationship with the other characters?
Well, I completely agree with Caleb, where I think the best part was George and Thrawn,
Hmm.
but the POV of Lorana was probably the most, I was most empathetic. She
Hmm.
seemed like the most empathetic character. So yeah, I really enjoyed her. And to what you just said, when like Saboth was kicking her when she's down,
Hmm.
and just to tab on that, I had heard from somewhere that Saboth was a better person in Outbound Flight than he was in the.
No.
And then I read this and I'm like, oh no, that's not true at all. He's just as bad.
Yeah, they call him in the trilogy the insane clone of and it's
Yeah.
like this is the sane one? Like
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm hesitant. At least this one's not like, this Sabayoth is not doing as much death and destruction, I guess, as
Mhm.
the other clone, but it's not a good character. Ryan, what did you think of Lorana and Joris?
Well, I think that her character is honestly, in a way, it's kind of heartbreaking because, like you all have said, verbally beat down through the whole thing. She's consistently attempting to, um, I wouldn't even say impress
Hmm.
Kabath, but just get that affirmation. And then it's never enough, never enough. And then to top it onto that, every single character is getting this same um, uh, abuse, if you will, from Kabath, and it's just she's left trying to like pick up the pieces, if you will, where she's having to apologize, she's having to mend the tension that especially builds up with all of the Outbound Flight crew members, and it's yeah, and then for her finale to end that way, it's kind of heart wrenching.
Mhm.
And I feel torn because with Joris, even though he does so many things, and I'm like, you are totally ruining everything. You are so insane. I still wanted him to succeed because his idea of bringing the Jedi Order out to the galaxy and him starting a new fresh one and bringing in more kids and expanding, those are things that I'm like, yeah, you're on the right track there. But at the same time, I can see he's maybe not the best leader for it, but also I know what's coming, having known about the Yuuzhan Vong and the Far Outsiders, and knowing about the Chiss. And so I'm at the same time going, don't go, don't leave. You're all gonna die. And so I felt this really kind of tug, and I was like, I want you to be successful, but I also want you to fail. I kind of rooted for the villains at a few times, and that's a good time to move to another character who I believe this is his only appearance and one of his only times he's ever referenced, and that is Kinman Doriana. We'll start with you, Ryan. What did you think of his character, and did you find him as slimy as I did?
He just tried to, I think that's a great word for it, slimy. The just attaching himself to any character that he thinks would benefit him in the end. Really well written, though. Very, very well written. And it's just uh, to see his outcome play out. It's just a fun ride. But
Mm-hmm.
again, he's not one that you enjoy the ride of his point of view, but you don't want him to succeed because,
Exactly.
like you said, he's just a nasty
Mm.
person.
Yeah, and I was also really amused by his dynamic with Palpatine.
Yes.
The scene where he literally is in the room with Palpatine and he's talking with him at the beginning, and then he leaves the room and turns on his comlink and starts talking to Darth Sidious. Oh, it's not even, I don't think it's comical. I don't think it's written to be that way, but I was laughing because I thought it was hilarious. The idea of like Palpatine switching gears and like putting on the hood really quick.
Yeah.
Did y'all have that, Caleb? Did
Oh
you have
yeah,
that
I
mental picture?
every time there was a meeting between the two of them, I got excited because I really enjoyed that. But then it was also fun to like listen to them talk about like, when it was Sidious talking, he'd be talking about Palpatine, and then when
Hmm.
Palpatine, it was fun. It was a fun dynamic, and I thought the same thing when I got to that scene. I was like, oh, he's really, Palpatine has to like scramble to make sure that he's all dressed up properly and everything.
Yeah, yeah.
Make
Uh,
sure no part of his chancellor robes are hanging out accidentally.
mhm. And I think what makes this really great is that Lego actually parodied not the Kinman character, but someone in his position who is serving Palpatine and also serving Sidious. And so there are two different Lego versions of this where he's flipping back and forth, and so. I have that image in my head. And my favorite part was when Sidious realizes that Skywalker, no, it was Sidious or Palpatine. As one of them, he realizes that Skywalker's on the trip, and he
I think
like
it was
literally,
Sidious.
yeah, and he literally runs out of the room and is like, "No, I gotta go get him." And so he literally like hops on a ship and just flies out there really quick. I was so amused by that. Caleb or Alex, were you as amused as we were?
Oh yeah, by that and by that character, I know you're talking you're a bigger fan than of Game of Thrones than I am. But I kept thinking that what's his name, Doriana, that it's he's like a little finger of
Oh,
the hook.
absolutely. That
And so I'm
is,
like,
yeah.
yeah, he's just
Hmm.
a snake, you know. But yeah, no, I love reading those characters.
Yeah.
And that part that you just mentioned about where Palpatine like goes and gets Kenobi and Skywalker to do something else because he knows nothing's good's going to come from this. Which there's a line that Zahn, I didn't write it down, but Zahn had Palpatine say to Master Kenobi, he's like, "Thank you, Master Kenobi. This is a bigger favor than you realize," or something like
Yeah,
that. And I
right.
love the double meaning
That was a
because,
great
you
scene.
know, he's a two-faced person, so it makes sense to write double meaning sentences like that. But I love when that happens.
See, this is where it gets kind of interesting is that in the prequel era, they were still, even though we all knew that that Palpatine was the Emperor, most of the authors were not revealing it in their books. I was just reading a book literally today where the author revealed it, and the book was written in 2004, and so I was surprised that the author actually was talking about them being the same person. But most of the time, especially in the prequel era books, they weren't revealing it. But this book came out, Outbound Flight came out in 2006. And so I think Tim felt that he could get away with those references. He could get away with it because it's been revealed in Revenge of the Sith. Quick, I do want to mention there are two characters in here. We've talked about them a little bit who are not like in the pitch of the book. And the first time I read it, it was a delightful surprise to learn that they're both in the book and to learn how big a role they have, and that is Obi-Wan and Anakin, and they're sent to watch Sabayoth. And so I'll start with Caleb. Did you know the first time you read this going in that they were in here, and how do you think Zahn handled their characters?
I had no idea they were in there, so that was a lot of fun. That was one of the things actually I was most looking forward to doing this reread, because for some reason I find that period of between Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones with Obi-Wan and Anakin really interesting. So anytime it shows up somewhere, I get excited. Um, so I really enjoyed that a lot, and I really liked how Zahn wrote them, especially in relation to other characters, because you have like Obi-Wan, like him and Sabaoth are like, you can tell he doesn't really like him that much because he does things in his own way. Whereas Anakin is like, oh, this guy's great. I love this guy. Teach me more, please. So that was a lot of fun. Just them in themselves were done very well, but then also like in relation to all the other characters was really good.
I kept thinking, how much sooner would Anakin have fallen to the dark side if his master was Sabayoth instead of Obi-Wan?
Yeah, because I mean, Sabaoth already did kind of fall to the dark side by the end of this, so it's like that probably would have sped up the process a bit.
Exactly.
What a fun Visions idea that would be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Disney, if you're listening. There's three books in between Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, at least in the adult books. There's a bunch of kids' books, but for the adult books, there's only three. You have Rogue Planet, Outbound Flight, and The Approaching Storm. And all three feature Obi-Wan and Anakin. And even though they're in this book the least, and they're not really the point of this book, in my opinion, this is the best use of them in those novels, which is really surprising. And Tim's not even, he talked about how he included them because he wanted to write Obi-Wan and Anakin. So
I enjoyed them in Rogue Planet too, but yeah, I do think they are probably better here, which is surprising because I feel like they have a bigger role in Rogue Planet.
Absolutely.
So.
But the ties between this and Rogue Planet with Vergere and their journey, Sabayoth saying that part of their journey is to go look for her, I think makes them work so much better together.
And I think, didn't they even reference Rogue Planet a couple times? They said like they went to this other place or stuff. I thought that was really cool.
I don't think they used the words Zanoma Sakat, but they did.
No, but they referenced it, so that was a lot of fun to see too.
Yeah. So we've kind of broken down all the major characters that were in the book and the general plot lines, but now we're going to go into the specific, like the main events of the book. And of course, there's so much, as we mentioned, it's really packed in. So what I'm going to try to do is just touch on the really big ones. One of my favorite moments in the book is the negotiations on Barlock, because it's not that much time spent there, but it does a really good job of showing how Obi-Wan is a master to Anakin, showing how Sabayoth is not a good master to Lurana, seeing Kinman Doriana's plans and Palpatine's layers and layers of plans, and then you also see the just like a new planet for Zahn to kind of experiment with. So I was going to start with Alex. You said that the George Cardass and Thrawn storyline was your favorite. What did you think of this one in terms of, did it keep your attention the whole time, or were you ready to get off Barlock by eventually?
I think it was just the right amount of time. It didn't seem too bad, I've read some I'm thinking of like James Luceno, where it's like the books and the scenes are like, I can't pinpoint any bad things that's happening. I'm just bored.
Yep.
Whereas is that in that particular part, I don't remember being bored at all.
Yep.
But it was not I don't think it was my favorite part of the book, but it was fine, you know.
Yeah, I really liked that because of the switching between the perspectives. You know, you never stayed with someone too long. You had Obi-Wan as a perspective, you had Lurana as a perspective, and you had Kim and Doriana. And so because it kept flipping back and forth, and also intercutting with the stuff on with Cardass and Thrawn, it's just I felt it was paced real well. Ryan, regarding Palpatine's plan, the whole time you're supposed to think that Palpatine's trying to kill Sabayoth, and in reality, he wants Sabayoth to succeed so that he will get the funding. What did you think of that twist?
Yeah, it kind of almost ties into this note that I have about Joruus C'baoth, where it, it's like maybe Palpatine kind of already knows how the Jedi Master works, and so
Hmm.
he and that attitude that C'baoth has of basically he'll do the needful to get his way.
Hmm.
And so when Palpatine knows this, all he had to do was just kind of slip this mission in as soon as he mentions, "Well, I'll give you the funding if you can get this done." And C'baoth was immediately for it.
Yep.
Just did not hesitate. And just it kind of works well with, the scheming that of how good Sidious Palpatine, really is at manipulation and getting things to work in his favor. I particularly find it, we were talking earlier about Anakin and Obi-Wan, how it, this story, it really surprises you when, if you've read the Thrawn books before and you know the outcome of Outbound Flight,
Hmm.
and you see that Anakin and Obi-Wan get aboard Outbound Flight, you're like, what? How
Right?
can this happen? And but again, going back to your question, yeah, there's just a really good section. It really sets up the rest of them. A lot of good character building for the back half of the book.
Yeah, absolutely. If you had just started with them on Outbound Flight, I
Hmm.
don't think that it would have been as effective because you would think that there's something off, whereas this lets you see Sabayoth's style, his domineering, take charge style, and you also see the plots within plots for Palpatine, and you're seeing the kind of distrust that Obi-Wan has, but also like
Yeah.
what am I gonna do? Like, I'm not gonna stop him. Like, so I like that part. And as soon as Obi-Wan and Anakin left, I personally felt a little bit like, oh no, there's nobody to stop. You know, there's no one to check his power now. And so I was worried. I was like, none of these other guys are going to stand up to him. So I was like, as long as Obi-Wan and Anakin are there, at least he's not going to go totally nuts. And I was partially right. I did want to ask Caleb. So Thrawn, we've seen him before. We have seen his perspective, both in the EU and the canon, regarding his strategy and also regarding his philosophy on first strike. And in the canon, there's the same reason as he is in Legends that he is thrown out of the Chiss, which is that he believes in first strike and they do not. And he applies that with the Vagari here against the slavers, and how Thrawn keeps basically attacking them. And what did you think of how Zahn handled the philosophy of the first strike? And do you think that Thrawn is in the right here, or do you think the Chiss ascendancy is in the right?
So I don't have a lot of thoughts on this, I think, but I enjoyed that. Like I enjoyed all of the stuff about Thrawn's mindset.
Hmm.
And I think it made like for his character made a lot of sense. I don't know if I would say he's in the right or not. But like I said, I don't have a lot of thoughts on that. That was one of the parts that didn't quite stick with me as much because it's been a couple weeks. But yeah, I
Well, I
did
think
enjoy like all of his stuff, like all of his philosophy, seeing his tactician ness and stuff. And the good old like, oh, I can look at your piece of art and know what you're gonna do. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Alex, on that point, this is something that's very prescient for today, where, we're still, I mean, we've been dealing with these issues for a while, but especially today, we deal with the, should we step in? And even though it's not harming our people, should we fight and protect these people who need to be protected, or that it's not our country, it's not our system that's being attacked, so we're just going to let it happen? That kind of isolationism philosophy. Do you think that was handled well, and do you think Thrawn was right?
Well, the last one, I don't know if I can answer. I really don't know because I don't know. I don't know if he's right because I think what Thrawn did so, I mean, what Zahn did so well is that I think what a lot of authors try to do and succeed at is that they kind of make very good arguments for both sides of the issue. And I can't, like, I mean, I think that's what an author probably strives to do. And I think because the, I can't give you an answer on whether I agree with Ron or not,
Mhm.
but I can tell you it makes for a great plot.
Yeah.
And of course, what a perfect plot for Thrawn to play,
Mm.
um, because I feel like every major thing, like the EU, the canon books, and the Ahsoka show, that's the kind of position that Thrawn's in anyway, where he's making these moral decisions at some point.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think it was really done well. If I had to choose, maybe I would side a little bit more with the Chiss, but I don't know. I don't know.
Because
I could be convinced.
because there's a good point that Palpatine makes, which is if you keep doing first strikes, you might unleash something you don't want unleashed yet.
Yeah,
And so there's a good argument for the isolationists, but then at the same time, they are able to help these slaves
yeah,
get out of the slavery and help people in need. And so yeah, the nuance is just it's so well handled, and it never feels, even though I said it's prescient, like it doesn't feel like this is a book having to deal with like post Cold War, or it doesn't feel like dated in any way. Like this book could have been in the 90s or the 2010s or the 2020s. It kind of has that timeless feel to it, which I think makes it work so well. One of the cool moments in the book is when Thrawn takes out the Trade Federation fighters, and he's never seen droids before. And he's like very curious about what they are. And yet, despite never seeing them, he just so skillfully takes them out. Ryan, what did you think of that sequence, and how Thrawn was able to utilize the droids' frequencies against them?
Uh, Classic Thrawn.
Yeah.
It really is. It's just taking the moment. He, uh, much like some of the other character perspectives, like you get to jump to the Nemoidian and Doriana, and they're panicking at
Mm-hmm.
this. But then the Nemoidian, I'm sorry, I can't think of his name at the
Can't
moment,
either.
but he is so convinced that he will dominate.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get Thrawn, who is, again, Thrawn, very cool, collective, analyzing, asking questions from Cardass and getting the, I guess, logistics maybe of it and piecing things together, and then can swiftly in the fight without a single loss
Yeah.
and
And
make
I,
it look easy at the same time.
And Thrawn's the type of person that he doesn't care if he looks really stupid if he knows the plan will work, because he keeps sending his ship out and then immediately sending back. And
Yep.
like, at the beginning of it, you think, what are you, stupid? Like, why are you wasting all that gas? And then you realize, oh no, it's actually part of the plan. It's wearing down their frequencies and stuff. So I really liked that sequence. We also have all of the political stuff on Outbound Flight, whereas you have the questions about should the Jedi have power. And the resounding answer throughout the Star Wars galaxy in the books and stuff is no. They should not be exerting power over the people. They should just be servants and guardians. But at the same time, you also think, if the right Jedi's in charge, maybe the right Jedi would be a good leader. And you see some of the Jedi on Outbound Flight, particularly I would say Lurana, who have the right instincts and I think would judge well. But then you also have like Sabayoth, who doesn't. And so all of those scenes where Sabayoth is not only taking control of things and forcing the recruitment of the kids, and he is ordering people to the new jobs, and he is punishing people without trial. You see, oh man, I don't like you doing this, but at the same time, you're like, I understand his perspective. Like even though I knew he was insane, I always felt he was his POV was at least understandable. He was never so crazy that he was just mustache twirling villain. He was, at least I felt, understandable. Did you feel that way, Caleb?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm distracted because my wife came in here and is staring at us. Um, but yeah, no, I thought it was interesting. Like, I think he was handled really well with that. Like, um, you know, y- you can kind of like, it's kind of interesting, like, when you get situations like with Anakin in there, and he's like,
Mhm.
maybe we should have like powerful people like this in charge, but you're like, oh, but what if those powerful people are doing powerful things that they shouldn't be doing? So, you know.
Makes me wonder, is this where Anakin got some of his
Yeah.
political ideas?
It sounds very like what he kind of would express later on.
Mhm.
So,
So we get to probably one of the most iconic moments of the entire book, which is the battle between Outbound Flight and Thrawn, which, at least in my estimation, went a lot faster than I remembered it happening. When I was listening to the audiobook, I was like, "Oh, that was quick. I guess he's already taken them out, and they're damaged and stuff." And what makes this so impactful, and there's also the Vigari stuff with Joris and whatnot. It's very complicated, but what makes it so impactful is when Thras goes and helps out Lurana. And upon reread, I knew it was coming, and I was like, "No, don't leave." But Thras is a character that had been introduced earlier with Aralani, and he'd kind of been disagreeing with Thrawn, and even though he's not bad, and you actually think he's doing a good guy, you still are frustrated by him because he's getting in the way of our hero Thrawn. And so as soon as he went away and I knew what was going to happen to him and Lurana, I was like, all of a sudden, I really am rooting for this guy now. And I thought Zahn did such a good job with that kind of heel turn of his character. What did you think, Alex?
Oh yeah, and the fact that we haven't mentioned Thras yet is crazy because
Yeah.
I loved him. Like, yeah, you're right in that he definitely is kind of like a speed bump
Mm-hmm.
in the protagonist's goals, but I just love that. I love that kind of interaction that he provided because he kind of represented the average chiss, I suppose,
Mm-hmm.
whereas Thrawn is Thrawn. You know,
Yeah.
so but yeah, I really enjoy his contribution to those plot lines for sure.
And with Ryan, with Lorana and Thras, their ending is it's just so sad. Had you remembered that from the first time you read it, and were you clinging to hope even to the last page that somehow they would right the ship?
Uh, uh, yes, I was hoping. I did not remember the ending. To be honest, I didn't even remember Thrawn had a brother.
Hmm.
But phenomenal character. Although it's always nice to see if he had a little more time on screen because I always got the feeling as I was reading through it and he was on the page that was not a action that he would make.
Mm-hmm.
It was a bit of a surprise to me that he would make that sacrifice and then he not knowing that was going to be the outcome, of course, but still willing to do the needful for the crew to survive at the end.
And I also think this is an example of Zahn kind of writing himself into a corner because he had written that there was a Chiss and a human in Survivor's Quest that had been found in the ship there. And in Survivor's Quest, he doesn't specify who they are, I don't think. And so he had to write a Chiss and a human being there. So that might be an example of him writing himself into a corner, but still, I think he handled it well. Um, uh, I wanted to get y'all's thoughts on the book as a whole in terms of not only how you'd rate it, but kind of generally in the hierarchy of the EU, where you each feel it is. And so we'll start with Alex on this one.
So I mentioned earlier that it's not my favorite Zahn book.
Mhm.
I'll amend that and say I can't think of a better Zahn book in the EU. But when
Hmm.
I think of Zahn books, I think like the best ones, in my opinion, are Thrawn, the new canon Thrawn and Thrawn Alliances.
Hmm.
Um, to rate this book in the EU, I would definitely put it up there for sure because it connects so many of my favorite things. The New Jedi Order is like my favorite series, not just in Star Wars, but it's so good. Um, so, oh gosh, you guys know I hate rating books. I hate it. Um, if out of 10, I would say nine.
Okay.
I don't think I can put it lower than a nine.
Yeah.
Um, And I don't know my top 10, but it would probably be around between 10 and 15 favorite books.
Yeah.
But I thought it was great. I couldn't really think of a major flaw in it. So
Yeah.
I liked everything about it. The plots, the characters, and everything. So
Absolutely, I agree. I forgot to mention, by the way, we talk about Thras. Thras shows up in one of the other books that none of y'all have read. That's what I'll
what?
say. Yep, there's a red book. No, I know none of y'all have read, and he shows up in it. So when y'all get there, it'll be fun. Ryan, uh, what would your rating and placement of this book be?
I don't typically like to rate with a score. I usually do just a thumbs down, thumbs up, or two thumbs up. And this is definitely two thumbs up.
Okay.
I would agree with pretty much with everything that Alex said as far as placement in the EU, definitely within the top 10 to 15. I think that's
Mhm.
very accurate. Very, very accurate. Um, if we want to talk about some cons a little bit later, that's fine. Because I did have a couple, nothing significant to bring it down like
Yeah.
detrimentally, but just phenomenal from start to finish.
Well, go ahead. Just while I'm thinking about it, go ahead and mention what some of your
Okay,
cons
sure,
are.
sure. So some of this book, while I think we've talked about this in the chat before, where it kind of seems like it's got your first act, which is the
Hmm.
negotiation on Barak, and then, in my opinion, there's two acts. You have that, and then you have
Yep.
Outbound Flight. Now, one can
Hmm.
argue, and then the final fight and battle, but I think this book is just especially the second half, is such a series of unfortunate events. A lot of things are just taken not out of context isn't the right word, but just unfortunate. So you have the okay, let's talk about Thras and the Padawan where I didn't think I thought that felt rushed with him just green to go and then green to sacrifice and stuff. That just kind of felt really like a bit too much. And I don't know if y'all were the same, felt the same as I did, but man, I just wanted one Jedi Master to just stand up to Kaboth and
Yes.
say, what are you doing? You cannot act like this. And or try to. I don't think they could get in contact at that point with the Jedi Council on
Hmm.
Coruscant. So trying to, I guess, tattletale on him, if you will, was not an option. But there were several masters on there that I wanted them to confront Kaboth about
I
his
would.
actions.
I agree. I would have liked to see them confront more. There was one character towards the end who kind of was like, "All right, we're going to give you a stay
Yeah.
until we judge, but we're going to give you a stay." But I wish he had been more. I would have loved to have seen like him have to go before the entire council on hologram and them all denounce him and him say, "I don't care," and have to see their reactions to, man, it doesn't matter what we do to him. He is totally wild.
Mhm.
So I would have loved to have seen that.
And I'm not typically a big fan of series of unfortunate events
Right.
stories because again like the whole uh, Palpatine getting Anakin and Obi-Wan off just felt like a, hey, they can't be on there because they got to
Right.
survive. And but again, it worked well enough, and just again, two thumbs up from me.
Good. Your rating system, it's like Dan Murrell used to do like out of fives on his YouTube channel for when he reviews movies, but he
Hmm.
switched it to he now has a sliding scale and it's the see it now, really good, it's okay, skip it and don't ever watch this movie. So it's like he has, yes, that's like your you have a sliding scale like that. So Caleb, same question for you, your rating and placement.
So I really liked it. Like I said earlier, I had read it pretty early on when I was reading Star Wars. It was really high then, and then it was really high now again. So I'd give it like a nine, 9.5, kind of similar to Alex. Um, I don't know where I would put it like in a ranking. Like I've read maybe half the EU books, so like maybe 70, 80-ish. And it's definitely like top 20 somewhere. I don't know where, but there's a lot that I really love, so it's hard to say. I would guess it's in the 20 to 10 range, maybe the low tens, but I'm not sure. So
Well, I can say
it's hard to say.
for myself, in terms of like standalone books, this is my number two book for Star Wars in EU, I should say, right behind Kenobi. However, I don't know whether like some of the series that I like more, if I split them up to individual books, if this is still in the top five or if it slides down to 10 or what. But I'll say this is super high up there, and I'd give it I'm gonna price this right, y'all. I'm gonna go 9.7. But like I really didn't have much I disliked. The only thing I disliked was I wanted more. There's so much to. I'm like, could we have made this a trilogy? Made this a whole first book about Barlock, made a whole book about the transport over, and then a whole book about the epic battle with Thrawn. Like, man, I would have been there. I would have loved the whole thing. So before we go, if you have any online presence that you are willing to share, we'll start with Caleb. Where can people find you online if they want to talk Star Wars with you?
I have a channel called Caleb Likes Books where I talk about books. So there you go.
Good answer. Ryan, you have anything to share?
Not much of a online presence, just a Twitter.
Yeah.
If ever to talk about Star Wars books or fantasy, or maybe even some Malazan, do that too.
You got it
Yeah.
too. You got two in there.
Yeah.
All right. Alex, how about you?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat with him. I just have Twitter, and I also just wanted to bring up the art of Outbound Flight is beautiful, and
Yep.
it's just great. And I got the wrong. Oh, I'm so sorry. That's my mistake.
That.
This is the right art,
Yep.
but this is a good book though. This is the book five of what series? What's it called, Ryan? What's it called?
Malazan
Oh, gotcha.
the Fallen.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's pretty good. It's pretty good. But yeah, no, you guys should read that. But yeah, no, that's it.
I will actually say Dave Seeley did a good job with the cover art.
Oh yeah.
Actually, plug from his channel. If you want to see someone interview Dave Seeley, I did that on the channel. So to look up this Dave Seeley interview, you'll see us talk about his our cover art, including his Star Wars stuff. But until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you so much for watching.